DGen Nation fam, what is up? What is happening? My oh my, it's February and the DGen Nation is back. No, you got it right. It is February. Off season doesn't sleep for anybody. We are here and we are going to be breaking down some NFL best ball strategy, getting you guys some best ball content this year. I think we kind of teased it on the last show there as we were getting into the Super Bowl breakdown there. And Kev, you're still wearing the gear, so I know it might hurt a little bit, but that's all right. You know, two Super Bowl appearances in 2 years. I'm sure you'll take that there in Kansas City. But I digress. For those of you guys who aren't familiar, it's the DGen Nation podcast. I'm Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at @RyanAlexander_W. Joined by my usual guys, my guys who ride with us on the DGen Nation pod. The Godfather himself, Mr. Kevin Steele at Fantasy Rat 13. And Maddie Dickinson, Maddie 2v2 at Maddie DFS is where you can find him on Twitter now. And Monologue Ryan, I guess I got to start working that in. That's going to be my goal in 2021 is to work it in, as we're already a minute and 30. And I got to give y'all the sweet soliloquies, the beautiful monologues here to break it down for you. If you guys were following along with us on Twitter all day, Maddie sent out a tweet about us going live probably about an hour ago. So if you're wondering where the show was, we're here now. Going to be talking about best ball strategy. We're excited to get into it. Something that we haven't done at the DGen Nation thus far, but we're going to be doing it this year. It's 2021. We're on to bigger and better things. And so hopefully you guys enjoy the content. Kev, Maddie, how you guys doing tonight?
I'm good. It's, usually middle of January, end of January, beginning of February is the last I get to share a podcast with you guys until we launch back up in August. So this is a nice treat to have a chance to be able to do something with you guys in February. So I'm excited to talk some best ball, which I think will be a new look for a lot of our listeners out there.
Hell yeah. Kev, how you feeling?
Feeling good. This is a nice little change up from all the NFL draft content that I've been out here producing, Javonte Williams, RB1, let's go. But, so it's nice to change it up a little bit and get into a little bit more, a little bit more best ball content and stuff like that. It also gets me prepped for the redraft season that we got coming up, so I can, be prepared for that too. We got in a few months, but, normally for most people, this is when people are chilling and relaxing. Not here, not TFA. We got content coming out just about every day, so it's been fun.
Yeah, and you're already touching on that content there, Kev. You got the Javonte Williams. We plugged that on the last show before the season was up. I saw your Jamar Chase video. Just doing work on all the guys, right? All the guys who people are excited about. You're giving them that goodness. I know you're doing the videos with Cody. That's exciting. Robbie and Cody doing some content videos for the channel as well, too, guys. You want to make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Subscribe for more content, as you can see there below if you're watching with us, and also some rookie running back content that's been out on the channel as well. That's been catching some steam, and then articles by Andrew and CJ on the site at thefantasyauthority.com. So a lot of stuff that we have going for you. So DGen Nation, we couldn't take a break, right? We had to come in here and get you guys in with something. And so that's where we're getting into best ball. And this show right here is going to be a short one. I say that, tongue in cheek here, as if you followed the DGen Nation over the years, we can get long winded, but this will be a short little intro video for those of you guys who might play best ball religiously. Maybe you're looking to dabble in and kind of wanted to get your feet wet in it this year. We got a ton of best ball content that's going all along across the board. I mean, best ball 10s have been around forever. Kev, I know you're familiar with those, have played those religiously over the years. Underdog Fantasy, formerly known as Draft. Some of you guys might be familiar with. They have tournaments out right now, a big tournament right now for $10. I think there's 5,700 or something around there entries for that. I've gotten into a couple of those. DraftKings will be releasing some best ball content. So it's really gotten popular over the years. So I think that's kind of where I want to start about that. Let's just talk about just best ball in general to maybe some people who might not be familiar with it. They're just browsing along and found our channel and wanted to see what intro to best ball is like. Kev, you explained it pretty well when we were first talking about doing this concept for the DGen Nation. So I'd like to hear your thoughts on kind of what best ball is for you and kind of why you are interested in playing it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it takes out all the other bullshit that goes along with like your season long leagues, right? With the
Right.
trading and the the waivers and everything else and all the other shit that you have and set your lineups every single week. Like you don't have to worry about that with best ball. You know, you get to do the best part, which is the drafting part, which is the part we all love to do, get hyped for. I know for me, like in season long, like draft day comes and I'm fucking amped. I'm ready to fucking go. Like, do that stuff. But with best ball, you get to draft as much as you want. You can start now and you can draft all the way until the season starts if your little heart desires, or if you have the bankroll to do so. And, I think it's a nice little, kind of savings account, if you will, use it in that way. But I also think it, is good. There's other benefits to it. I think it gets you ready for, your redraft season and and really DFS. I think it really helps you out there as well, like diving into these players, getting deep into some of these rookies and some of these other guys that, maybe you wouldn't really be paying attention to, some of those later round picks and stuff like that. So I do think those things do definitely matter. And, I mean, so I think that for me is what I love the most about best ball. And there's definitely a lot of strategy that goes into it, right? Like there's not, it's stacking is super important, but there's different ways that you try to get different. And I think we'll talk about it probably a little bit, but it matters more too on what type you're playing. Are you playing in the tournament? Are you playing in just a typical 12-man best ball league? Because that changes dramatically.
Yeah, and we could talk about some of that. I mean, Maddie, I know you were talking about Underdog, and before we get into that, shout out to Walito, friend of the podcast who's been riding with us for a while here with the super chat, asking how everyone's doing. Maddie, why don't you tell the guy how you're doing, and then let us know how you're feeling about best ball this year for 2021.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been nice to hop on with you guys and do another show here, but it wouldn't be a show without Walito hanging out in the chat. So it's good to
Absolutely.
have Walito hanging out. It makes it feel like home, makes it feel like, we got an audience out there that cares and is listening. And Walito tunes in every single week. So I'm doing good, Walito. Appreciate you hanging out as always. But yeah, best ball, man. I think Kev hit the nail on the head for all the reasons why I enjoy it as well. I mean, drafting, that's the best part of fantasy. Anything, football, baseball, basketball, the drafts are the best part. Drafts are usually like an hour-long puzzle that you got to put together. Like, okay, well, I went with this pick in the first round. Now, who am I going to take second and third round? What's going to be available? So you kind of got to strategize out for an hour, and it's just a fun exercise to do. And in best ball, you can do a bunch of little couple dollar drafts, and maybe you're doing some $3 drafts, and you do 10 of them. That's $30, and that may be the same entry as your home league that you're playing in. So I just think best ball is a cool way to get a ton of exposure doing drafts and getting experience doing them. And then, like Kev said, once you get to your redraft league, you've done so many best balls that you know what the board looks like. You can just show up with no pen and paper in hand, and everybody's gonna look at you like, well, you're not prepared or anything, and you're gonna be like, no, I'm prepared. I've been doing my stuff, been playing best balls. So, no, but yeah, there's some strategies we'll talk about. I think that a lot of people don't realize the importance of the lineup being set for you. You get somebody who scores 15 points in week 1 and that same player scores 15 points in week 2. And that's not as valuable as a player who scores 0 points in week 1 and 30 points in week 2. Even though it's the same amount of total points over the 2 weeks, when the guy scored 0 points, he was not in your lineup and somebody else was scoring points for you. So really your team as a whole scored more than 30 points because that guy, had that ceiling game. So best ball, really, we'll talk about it as we go through players in coming shows in the coming weeks. But best ball for me really is all about chasing players who have ceiling games. And I don't really care about floor games in best ball. Give me guys with 100-yard, 2-touchdown upside on any given week. And those guys are going to be the ones making my team. So we'll get into strategy, but yeah, it's a really fun format. And I think it's awesome that you can just do the draft and then you just put that team away and you just pay attention to the scores week in and week out. Your lineup gets set for you. It'll automatically play the players that, score the highest points. So you never have to worry about, oh, well, I got Michael Thomas in my lineup and he only scored 4 points this week. And I benched Sammy Watkins and he got 48. Like, what? I would never start Watkins over Michael Thomas. Well, that week you would have in best ball. So that's because the software does it for you. So I think it takes away the headaches of waivers, the headaches of having to decide, which guy you're going to play in a tough matchup or which guy you need to sit in a good matchup. Takes those away. And then injuries is another thing too that I think, kind of evens out because everybody has to deal with injuries and you don't get to make pickups in season. So that, it's not like a team that gets an injury can make a pickup for that guy and stay on top of the league. So it definitely, like, I had a ton of Dak Prescott that my good teams at the end of the year could have used this year. So we'll talk about stacking and all that, but I think best ball is definitely a very, very fun and different format.
Where do you guys think the biggest edge is in terms of best ball right now? Because I still think best ball is still pretty untapped in terms of finding edges and stuff like that, because like it hasn't become totally mainstream, right? Like there's certainly a lot of people grinding best ball and stuff like that, but in terms of it being like a mainstream thing, it certainly isn't. Like it feels more like DFS 2 or 3 years ago, right? Where there was a lot of edge and everything else. Like I still feel like best ball is still that's where best ball is still at. And there's a lot of edge to be had. But where do you guys feel like the biggest edge is right now for best ball?
Ryan, you want to take it?
I've gotten into 2 already. I'm still pretty green in it. I think last year was my first real time getting into it. Played some best ball 10s, not too much on Underdog. Played a little bit on the DraftKings as they had that big like $20 tournament that they released in their first year. So that was fun. But I got in the game when it was already like into draft season. Sort of like in August when things are already set. I think I'm excited now to be drafting this early on, like when the season's already over, because most people are just, they're thinking about the guys who ended the season hot and maybe not the guys who were injured or not the guys who kind of let people down or whatever, or what is the landscape looking like? And I'm trying to get edges on one, those guys, 2, guys who I think could be on the move and might land in favorable spots. I mean, for example, like Carson Wentz, I got him in a best ball draft in the 12th round before the trade news was going on. I mean, Carson Wentz, you sent the ADP for best ball 10s, Kev. Like he was just going pretty much late in everything, like basically untouched because people weren't sure where he was going to land. But Indy being one of those spots, I thought that was a potential, favorite. And then Bears, I mean, the Bears are the Bears, but I was like, if I can get some Wentz on the Bears exposure, whatever. So I think that's cool. I mean, I think like you talk about the rookies too, Kevin. I don't know a lot about them. So I think right now the edge is for people who know a lot about the rookies who are covering those guys, like to get them as long as you know the player, because landing spots we think matter in fantasy, and they do. I don't think I won't say anything about that, but I think if you can get some of these untapped rookies who people aren't writing deep content about late in these rounds, I mean, they're going to probably spike tremendously once the draft happens and they do get to favorable landing spots. So those are the things that I'm looking for right now and that I'm excited about, especially as I dive more into the rookies and understand them more and can, get them in favorable spots, because there's a lot of rookies that I've seen people talk about who cover that stuff religiously, who are going like in the double-digit rounds, and that's dope. I mean, Rondale Moore, for example, went in a double-digit round in one of my drafts, and I was like, that's I feel great about that. Because you're talking about upside, Maddie. Like if you can get some of these guys that land in favorable spots for upside, that's exciting.
I definitely think there's an edge there in terms of the rookies. I think the biggest edge right now in best ball is roster construction, is understanding the proper roster construction for best balls, right? Because I think most people will look at it a little bit differently, where with best ball, you're really wanting to create stacks and even multiple stacks within your lineup, where that's not really something you're necessarily looking to do. And like if you're a typical redraft guy, right? Like you're we say wait to draft quarterbacks till the very end. You're not necessarily looking to do that in best ball. You're maybe want to take one a little bit sooner. Take one in the 7th, 8th round. You don't have to take Pat Mahomes. I think you're paying too much. You're investing too much. But understanding that it's probably smarter to take Travis Kelce or George Kittle, in round 1 or round 2. And there's a lot of edge to be had because you're kind of cornering the market there. But understanding how to properly build your lineup and roster construction is so important in best ball. And I think it gives you a huge edge over the field. And I think if you jump in either now and even right before the season starts, I think there's probably a big edge there because you probably have a lot more people that are just all of a sudden jump in August, or maybe they're not playing. They're not going to. I think the hardcore people are probably drafting in May and June, where I think you probably have your normal crowd probably jump in August and early September before the season starts, and you're going to have a lot of edge there as well. So to me, I think that's just the biggest edge there is understanding how to put together a proper lineup.
Yeah, and Maddie, why don't you touch on that a little bit? I was gonna, say, I mean, just reading up on some of this stuff. I mean, there's not a lot, as Kev saying, content that's out there, but I was reading up on some stuff that Scott Barrett had written a couple of years ago. He explained best ball as like a mock draft with a payout, which I just love seeing that because Kev, as you're saying, like the best part about fantasy sometimes is that draft, right? To have that feeling of getting a team that you are so excited about. And as I was going through the best ball teams, I was like, man, this is great to like have exposure to these players, at this time. And so when you're building your roster, one of the things that I was looking at when I got into the league was where can I get Joe Burrow and T Higgins? Like that's a stack that I was looking to get that I thought might, go under the radar. And I know T Higgins, he's kind of getting popular right now. I mean, people were reaching for him in some of the drafts, or maybe not reaching for him, depending on how you feel. But Joe Burrow, coming off of the injury right there, I think he's going to be overlooked. So I definitely want exposure to, guys like that definitely offer high upside. I mean, Joe Burrow was a player that, was putting up fantasy points in bunches. Like every week we were playing him in DFS because he was putting up, 300 yards, multiple touchdowns and things of that nature. So I'm curious, Maddie, as to what you're seeing, because I look at this and I was trying to get some of those stacks like Wentz and Pittman. After he landed at the Colts, I thought that was, pretty nice to get those guys late, looking for the Joe Burrow stuff. But where would you be looking to kind of build your roster, and how many stacks is appropriate, and what should you be doing in those middle rounds, maybe?
Yeah. So it's kind of a loaded question because it really determines like your early part of your draft, at least how I've approached it. The early part of my drafts has determined how the rest of my draft shakes out, because in best ball, you only have, so at least on Underdog, which is the platform I'm familiar with, you start you start one quarterback, two running backs, three wide receivers, a tight end, a flex, and that's it. So if I'm only starting two running backs and I take, like, let's say I spend my first two picks are on two stud running backs up top. If I use my first and second round pick on two of the top running backs and those guys don't work out this year, then I probably lose anyways. So in my mind, I'm going to say, okay, I'm banking on top end production from my top two picks, and my top two picks were running backs. So now I'm going to kind of back off my running backs in these next middle few rounds, and I'm going to start loading up on my tight ends, my quarterbacks, and my wide receivers. Because you've got to fill three wide receiver slots, and wide receiver is such a more volatile position that you really need as many quality wide receivers as you can get that have ceilings. Like I don't want to play a guy that's going to go out there and get 8 points a week, because that doesn't do me any good. I want guys who can get 0 or get 35. Like those are the kinds of wide receivers that I want to target. But it's also like in the same regard, like Kev mentioned, you don't necessarily have to go get Mahomes early. And attack things like that. But if you can go get a Chiefs stack early, again, if I have a Chiefs stack early, if I've got Mahomes, I somehow paired him with Kelsey and Tyreek Hill, I have those guys. That's who I paid up for early. I don't want to take another early quarterback. I don't need to go get a Kyler Murray in the 6th round or a Dak Prescott in the 7th or 8th round, because I'm banking on Patrick Mahomes having a good enough year that I drafted a quarterback in the 2nd or 3rd round to warrant me picking him. So it's you got to kind of figure out, okay, if my early draft capital hits, what does that mean for the rest of my roster construction? Okay, well, I took a quarterback early. My early quarterback is now smashing. That means my other quarterback probably isn't going to have many weeks where he contributes to my score. So let me take a shot on a very cheap secondary quarterback. Like last year for me, I was pairing Dak Prescott in the 7th-ish round I had a lot of Jared Goff paired with him because I was like, okay, the Rams offense, they're cheap. I can stack Goff with Kupp or Woods pretty easily and maybe throw in like a Van Jefferson here and there. And I can pair that with the Cowboys stacks that I had. And I said, okay, on weeks that the Cowboys don't score a ton of points, maybe the Rams do because the Rams have a good offense and they were cheap. So, but a lot of times, I'll see people sharing their teams on Twitter and whatnot. And you see them with a Lamar or a Patrick Mahomes as their main quarterback, and they've got 3 quarterbacks on their team. And to me, I'm just thinking it's such a waste of a roster spot because it's like not all of those guys can contribute to your team on a weekly basis. Like 2 of those guys are going to be on the bench. And if you wasted a 3rd-round pick on a quarterback, you need him to smash for him to pay off. Otherwise, you should have drafted a top-end wide receiver or a top-end running back. So I think it's very important to kind of figure out the production that you're going to get from your early picks and try to fill in the rest of your team based on that. At least that's how I've approached it. And I've had success in best ball, so I'm not going to switch anything up. But, yeah, it's – and Ryan, like you said, it's taking advantage of those guys that nobody else out there wants to play because they have question marks. Like last year, nobody wanted to pick Stephon Diggs. Like he was falling so far in drafts, and he ended up being one of the top scoring wide receivers in the league. So definitely take shots on uncertain guys. Like Kenny Galladay's is a name I see right now, just to throw a name out there, who's kind of sliding down boards, just because people don't know, what the situation is with him, going into free agency, where he's going to be, what if he ends up on a really good team and a really good offense somewhere? He's a really talented wide receiver. So that's just kind of one of those situations, you want to take an advantage of. But yeah, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. I just wanted to throw in some specific roster construction approach that I take myself.
Well, I mean, I think so. Like in terms of stacking, like you shouldn't be forcing a stack, right? Like I think your stack should come naturally. So if early you drafted Devontae Adams or any other wide receiver that you or tight ends that you may have drafted a little bit early, you can then once you start getting in the later round, start looking at some of those guys to stack with, right? Like to me, the Pat Mahomes stack is so expensive that what you are paying for that can often hurt you because you're missing out on all those other key positions, top end running backs, stuff like that. So your team becomes pretty volatile at that point, right? To be able to complete that stack where, and especially it really comes down to, are you playing in tournaments? Are you playing in just like a typical, 12-man league and whoever wins at the end, wins the money. And okay, that's totally different because you're just playing against those 12 people. But if you're playing in a tournament where, you're trying to take down 10,000 and you're playing against thousands of people, your strategy has to change completely because you are looking much more for that contrarian build. Like you're going to have luck come into it. Because if you're playing in a against 10,000, 20,000 people are going to have, you're playing against a lot of different people there. And so for that, like you have to get a little bit more different. And I think then you take shots, you're going to be taking much, you should probably take a look at taking shots at guys like, for example, like Ryan Tannehill last year, right? And stacking him with AJ Brown and Corey Davis and Derrick Henry, right? Like where a lot of people wouldn't necessarily want to stack, running back with the quarterback, but in season long, I think there's a little bit better correlation over the whole season versus just that 1 week. And so, and attacking a stack that way instead of just being like, I think a lot of people look at like, oh, I'm just going to go Pat Mahomes and Kelsey and stack done. Like, no, you can expand it out further than that and go all in on that team. Like if you're in love with like last year, everybody loved the Cowboys, right? But the Cowboys were like that super hot, like everybody was going to have them. You probably weren't going to be that different in a tournament. And the chances of you taking that down in a tournament isn't that high because you're going against all these other people. And it's much like, you're playing a GPP and DraftKings, right? Like you're basically taking the chalk there. So to get different and to get a little contrarian, like then maybe you go after, if you would have went Ryan Tannehill, that build is going to be much less popular than especially last year. And we all know how profitable the Titans stack was this year. It was tremendous, right?
I stacked them every week, and
yeah, and so that was one of them. The Bills were another one with Josh Allen. There weren't a lot of people that were super high on Josh Allen heading into last year. Okay, like there was certainly the core group of people that were, but for the most part, not a lot of people were. And so that was a productive stack. Like this year, just looking at ADP alone, like I think Jalen Hurts is a little bit restricted. But I have a feeling he is going to probably fly up, and he's going to be a guy, if we find out he's going to be a starter, that is probably going to get more popular. But I think guy like Kirk Cousins, who's like quarterback 18 right now, I think he could make some sense stacking with Justin Jefferson if you take Justin Jefferson early. You know, he's somebody that you can wait on later. You don't have to force that stack to get it happening now. Like you can let it happen naturally. And okay, I got Justin Jefferson on my team. I got DK Metcalf. All right, you know what stacks am I going to try to go with here, and let it happen naturally over time. And then if you're going to get contrarian, I think at the end of the draft is probably where you're going to get more contrarian and taking shots on guys that are going to end up helping you in the long run. I mean, maybe guys that people aren't even looking at, guys that are much deeper down on depth chart, stuff like that. James Robinson would have been a good example. Somebody like you were just going through looking at a guy, maybe this guy could work out. He ends up taking the starter. He ends up panning out. Boom. Now you just crushed it.
Yeah, and I'll let Ryan kind of talk about his drafts briefly that he did and maybe some things that he noticed in those drafts really quickly. But I wanted to note too that the draft position matters as to when you should draft those players from those teams. So, for example, right now. I'll give you an example so you can kind of see what I'm saying. Right now, the Colts are insanely cheap. Every single Colt that I see is down in like the 100+ range of ADP.
Right.
Three
pass catchers.
Yeah, pass catchers. So like right now, I want to stack Carson Wentz with Pittman, Ty, the tight ends. Like I just want to get as many Carson Wentz different stacks that I can get while it's very cheap. Now, a month from now, even a couple of weeks from now, they all those guys may jump up into like the 7th-ish round, and I may not want to get as much exposure to them there because now they're starting to creep into the territory of like, last year Dak Prescott was going in the 7th and 8th round. So that just kind of gives you the idea of, the position of where these guys are being taken should influence, how heavily you're targeting them. Like don't get take locked into drafting the Colts, even if they slide all the way up to like the 6th round in ADP, just because you love the Colts and think Carson Wentz can smash there. Take advantage of them right now while they're free. And that way you've got a Colts team that's paired with maybe like a Chiefs build up at the top because you use your early picks on the Chiefs and your late picks on the Colts. And so now you have a Chiefs-Colts main build. So yeah, definitely utilize the time windows of when guys are cheap. And I think rookies right now, Ryan, you briefly touched on it. Cam Akers is probably my favorite example from last year. I mean, I think he was going, double-digit rounds last year until he got drafted by the Rams. And then he was consistently being picked in the 5th round. And now look at him this year. He's projected to be a first-round pick heading into the drafts this year. So it's just take advantage of the talented rookies, even though you don't know where they're going to fall. So guys like Jamar Chase and things like that just have immense talent. Just bet on their talent and get them cheap, and then they'll fly up the draft boards once we know exactly where they fit. So, but yeah, Ryan, I know you had mentioned in our chat that you had gotten a ton of Colts exposure because of how cheap they are. So
yeah. I mean, I just thought that like what Wentz was on the move. That's what made me get him, and then I just was like, okay, so I got some Cole Kmet shares late. Like if he landed on the Bears or whatever, like loves the tight ends or whatever, they love Cole Kmet. Like I thought that could make some sense. I mean, once the news broke, I got in a draft on Underdog in that $10 tournament and was like, I just want to see where I could get like a Wentz Pittman stack. And I'm pretty sure I got them cheap. Let me pull it up here real quick. As I loaded up, I got Carson Wentz.
You didn't get Campbell to go with him?
No, I got Wentz at 122, and then I got Pittman at 98. So whatever that Pittman in the 9th, and then Carson Wentz in the 11th. So did that reverse? I mean, it's interesting because I don't really know a lot about the rookies at this point yet that I feel confident about. I mean, your boy Javonte Williams, Kev, 5th and 6th round in the 2 best balls that I've been in. I mean, he's catching steam though, so like that makes sense. Guys like Chuba Hubbard though and Trey Sermon, those guys are going in double-digit rounds. Like I said, Rondell Moore, I saw him going in the 12th round. I was like, let me jump on that. I know that Bateman kid, people have been talking about him. He's going late in rounds that I saw. I got, trying to get exposure. I saw somebody in the chat asking about Jaguars. I do, want to get some exposure to those guys. I got a Visca share. I think I got him in the 8th, but I went running back heavy. So on that team, like my wide receivers are McLaurin in the 4th, Jamar Chase in the 6th, Visca in the 8th, Pittman, and then Darnell Mooney, like 3 in a row. So just wanted to, take some shots on guys. And the thing that I like about Underdog too, Maddie, and you know this, Kev, I know you can't play there yet. Hopefully something gets passed. But when you go to your lineups, when you go to see where your lineups are, they show you your exposure. You can click a tab of your exposure. So like what guys, how much you're exposed to guys and how much money you're exposed to that guy as well, which I thought was extremely helpful because I was thinking about that with my best ball 10s as I was playing, just a couple bucks there. I think they have some $5 tournaments on there and I was just loading up on those. But I was thinking about that as I had like a Google Excel spreadsheet and I would be typing players' names in to see who I had where. But I like that about Underdog. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely things to take advantage of. I mean, like Kev said, Kirk Cousins, going in the 11th round right now, which, definitely could be cheap because Justin Jefferson is going, within the top 3 rounds at least. Thielen's going up there too. You could get Irv Smith late, and that's a nice little, kind of pairing there that I like as well too. So I think it's just a lot of fun right now to kind of get in and take advantage of things. I mean, TJ Hawkinson was another interesting guy to me. Like Goff is there now. I've seen him, target Higbee, target Everett. I think Hawkinson could still be one of those guys to eat, depending on what happens in their situations there. Go ahead, Maddie.
I was just going to say, just eyeballing this ADP real fast, I think San Francisco is another offense that I'm going to have a ton of exposure to, especially right now. Even if you don't want to stack them with Jimmy G, like if you're afraid they bring in another quarterback some way, shape, or form, stack up there your wide receivers. Like Ayuk he's over 70 in ADP. Debo's in the hundreds, which is crazy to me. But and I mean, even Mostert, their starting running back is around 100 in ADP. So the San Francisco 49ers outside of George Kittle are pretty cheap right now. And I mean, you've got Shanahan at the helm. And if they somehow bring in another quarterback, maybe they somehow sneak a deal for Deshaun Watson. Who knows? It's just random things like that could happen. You have this insanely talented offense of Debo, Ayuk, and Mostert at very cheap prices. And then once, if they make an adjustment, those prices are going to skyrocket. So.
Yeah, and talking about the Jaguars, like I think the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence, I think we could pretty much lock him in there. And I think that really lifts the ceiling of guys like DJ Chark, who I loved last year, heading into last year. And I think that really opens things up for him because, Trevor Lawrence is 1,000 times better quarterback than Gardner Minshew ever hopes to be. The tough part about that is like with best ball is like he is cheap though right now. He's going off the board about QB 17 for Trevor Lawrence. But like I don't know what his ceiling is, at least for this year. Like he does offer rushing ability. He had over 500 rushing yards 2 years ago. So like he's certainly a guy that has that upside as well. But I don't know overall like the stack how much upside is. Like I definitely want exposure to DJ Chark, who is going off the board like wide receiver 29 right now. Laviska Shenault is another one. I think both of those guys are interesting. And if you wanted to go Trevor Lawrence, you certainly could, and a little mini stack there with those guys. I think that is a direction you go. I've been looking at this overall ADP. Something that stood out to me is Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which is laughable to me. That he is the classic guy that the community fucking overhyped and everybody got way too excited about it.
Unbelievable.
And he didn't meet their expectations. Like Clyde Edwards-Helaire wasn't bad last year. Everybody keeps saying like, "Oh, he's a bust. He was terrible last year." No, he wasn't. He had over 1,100. He had over 1,100 yards. 8 of his 13 games he played, he was an RB2 or better. He had 4 RB1 weeks, 4 RB2
fired
weeks.
Up.
Like, well, it's just something I've been seeing a lot, right? Like, and I'm thinking about doing a video of like, we're not there yet for redraft stuff. Like, I want to wait because like, I'm definitely doing a video because it's fucking stupid. Like, he wasn't bad last year.
Great.
And right now, you're looking at his ADP of RB20, and I'm like, okay, yes, I will take that now. That is great value. Where last year he was going too high. He was going 105, 106. That's too high. He was at his ceiling. Is where you were drafting him.
Yeah.
Now you're getting him at a fucking reduced price, and this is the time to buy. And I'm going to keep buying him as long as he stays there. I'm buying.
If Darrell Williams was the starting running back in Kansas City, I'd be buying him. Like, if you're the starting running back in Kansas City, I'm in. I am in.
Right.
Well,
Yeah,
and he was probably the second best rookie running back last year. I mean, and he was better than Jonathan Taylor was. He was better than, in terms of an entirety of a whole season, right? He was better than him. The only running back that was better than him last year was James Robinson. And James Robinson is like the redheaded stepchild of all the rookies. Every time you hear anything about the rookies this year, it's Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Antonio Gibson, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, and J.K. Dobbins. Nobody ever mentions fucking James Robinson. Like, he wasn't a rookie last year. It's just because everybody's expecting James Robinson, they're going to draft his or they're going to sign somebody because he's not the guy, which is fucking stupid. Like, he was a fucking monster last year and one of the worst one of the worst offenses in all football. Anyways, we'll see on that. Like, and to me this year, like, Jonathan Taylor is going super fucking high. He's going 105. Now this offense, with Carson Wentz, I think becomes a little bit more interesting. Do they throw the ball a little bit more now that they have Carson Wentz? I don't know, but he is going pretty high. I think 105 is probably. I think he ends up moving up further than that. I think you end up seeing him go probably 103-ish as we get closer to the season.
105 and 106 in the 2 drafts that I was in, and I was just like, it just gets dicey. I mean, because for me, like, so the first draft that I had, I drafted from the 4th position. The second one I drafted from the 2nd position. And when I was in that 4th position there, I ended up taking Alvin Kamara because it's Alvin Kamara. And I was like, I want to share, so I'll get him now. But I honestly did consider like taking a guy like Tyreek Hill, as we're saying, Maddie. I mean, because like the wide receivers at the top, and it's one of those things. I do like having the stud running backs usually at the beginning, but as you're saying, with taking chances and like being different, especially an underdog when it's a tournament style, I was like, how many people are going to have, taken Tyreek this early and then, try to build around from there. And maybe I can sneak Mahomes in the 3rd round or something like that. And he ended up actually going before that, I think, or maybe your first. Yeah. He went at the turn 212. Pat Mahomes did. So like that would have been kind of, I would have had to take him in the 2nd round if I wanted that stack. But I do think, getting weird like that at the top, I mean, these running backs, and we see it every year. I mean, they're going to be, you're going to just overpay for them because people have just seen them and they want to get that, production that goes right. But I do think there's still some guys, late that are, kind of just going under the radar. I mean, like you said, Raheem Mostert, like he's going, towards the double-digit rounds that I was seeing in some of these things. Myles Gaskin was going, pretty later on as well too. I feel pretty confident about him, carrying some things. So I just think it's interesting to get into multiple of these and kind of see where people are going. And obviously you're in these best ball leagues, and the different thing about these from redraft leagues, right, is like when I'm in my redraft leagues, I feel like I know how everybody's going to draft. I know their strategies and who they are and who players they like and things of that nature. So you can kind of go in with your other strategy, thinking about what the other players are going to do. And then I'm in these 2 best balls, and I'm just like, damn, I don't know like any of these people, like how they're attacking things or what they're thinking. And so that made me more interested in getting my guy. Kev, I thought that was interesting as you brought up those rookie running backs. It's like 7 in the top 30 of 2020 rookie running backs that are going right now. And that's picks total, like not, I don't mean running backs, like 7 of the top 30 picks. So that's just crazy to me. I think there's definitely advantage there to take of.
Yeah, and it's also taking advantage of guys that struggled last year. Joe Mixon, perfect example. I'm like, when I was scrolling through looking at ADP, I was like, okay, where's Joe Mixon? Okay, where's Joe Mixon?
Yeah, where's Joe Mixon?
Where the fuck's Joe Mixon? RB20? Like, get the fuck out of here. Okay, like
I love it.
If you get Joe Mixon at RB20, fucking slam that draft button. Take it all day, because that is overcorrection. Like, I get it. You know, with the injury, it was I still don't know what injury he had, but I don't know if it was a business decision. I don't know if they were just holding him out because they had no shot. I don't know. But Joe Mixon, with that offense, with Joe Burrow should be back next year, and with all the weapons they had, that offense, and I think one of the biggest things that they're probably going to do is address that offensive line, bring in more pieces to solidify that offensive line to protect Joey Burrow. It'll help Joe Mixon. Like, Joe Mixon is an absolute steal right now at RB20. That is way too ridiculously priced for him. And then even Saquon Barkley going at 106. Like, the thing that you're going to run into a lot is with these is that people are going to look at these guys and say, oh, I can't draft that guy. He gets hurt too much. Like, I've already heard it with Saquon. Like, hear a lot of people say it. Oh, he is injury prone. He's injury prone. I'm not touching Saquon. It's fucking stupid. Okay. He's not injury prone. He got hurt. He missed 3 games. His, not last year, but the year before. Then last year, obviously, he got hurt in week 2, right? Which was a freak fucking ACL tear that, I don't know. He's not injury prone at all. And, like, it's funny to me because people feel comfortable taking Dalvin Cook. I'm like, Dalvin Cook's never played a full season ever in his entire career, but he's not injury prone. We're cool taking him. We can take him early, but not Saquon. So if I can get even Saquon at 106, I feel like that's a value for number 1 or RB1 upside. So, and I will say, like, we'll and again, it's probably something we'll get into more, but with Saquon, like, the Giants' offensive line, like, early last year was fucking terrible. Like, their adjusted line yards were like 31st, 32nd across the board. But by the end of the year, they moved up to like I think they're like 23rd, 22, somewhere around that. Not a huge shape, but they definitely started to come together and they started to get better. They have invested on the offensive line as well. Obviously, with their first round pick last year, Andrew Thomas and Will Hernandez that they have. So I think good things are coming for that offensive line. I mean, Wayne Gallman in the second half, actually, there for like
I was going to say,
was a fucking RB1. I remember talking about him on the show.
Every week you talked about
guys like that, like just
week.
taking advantage of value. Like, people have to throw out what happened last year because people get caught up in recency bias far too much. And everything that happened last year, they think is going to happen this year, and that's not the fucking way it ever works. And so trying to take advantage of that as well, I think, is also a good way to go.
Yeah, and I know we're getting up on the 45-minute mark here, so I did want to, kind of wrap it up or whatever. But if you guys have, conversation that you want to talk about, let's keep it rolling for just a little bit longer. But I think Walito brought up something, kind of with free agency. I saw people kind of going back and forth in the chat, and just, with the Colts situation, with Pittman and oh my gosh, who's the guy Paris Campbell, T.Y. Hilton could be gone. And then A.J. Green for the Bengals, he could be gone, which I think is getting a lot of people interested in T. Higgins as well, too. I think, we know that Deshaun Watson is going to end up somewhere, right? So, like, I think, looking at those, if you go, whether it's odds and seeing who the top teams are for odds, or seeing, what the landing spots for them, and just getting exposure to, I'm not saying the entire team, but, like some of these places where he's rumored to end up, Maddie, you brought it up, San Francisco, like, you can get those guys cheap. Denzel Mims, I mean, if he ends up on the Jets, like, that stock is way up for him, and he's going, in the double-digit rounds, which is, just crazy. And we know they're going to probably make a decision at quarterback there in the Jets anyway. Denver, with those guys there, Cortland Sutton, I think people have forgotten about him, being injured. And if Deshaun ended up there, like, he could, definitely skyrocket. I mean, I like trying to look at the landscape and just kind of seeing, where things could kind of shake out through free agency or whatever. And it's like, it's best ball, right? Like, I'm not saying you're going to 100% predict the future, but to just get one of those guys and you're saying, okay, their quarterback situation might change, or this running back could go somewhere else. I mean, AJ Dillon, like, he's going to be a hot topic item because Aaron Jones could be gone in free agency. So, like, what are they doing there? They just invested draft capital in a guy like AJ Dillon too. And only has Jamal Williams there to compete, and we know they like to switch it up, but they're going to ride somebody. So I think
Jamal Williams is a free agent too, so they don't even have him.
Oh wow, yeah, damn. So yeah, that even speaks more to
That's probably why they
getting
drafted Dillon.
Yeah, that's even more speaks to getting a guy like AJ Dillon too. If both of those guys are gone, I mean, and I don't think people are necessarily all thinking about that at this time. So definitely, just like we said before, getting in now and taking advantage. And the last thing I wanted to say as I tossed it to you guys was just for people to just have their budgets or whatever and try and get into whether it's different sites or just getting different teams or whatever. Just know what you're kind of putting in and investing, and just kind of, structure it in that way that you can be smart and get exposure to these different things. I mean, if you're just going to say, all right, I want to take $20 and that could get you 2 underdog teams in the $10, or that could get you possibly 4 best ball teams if you're playing in the $5 over there, and just getting exposure to all these different things that are early happening before the draft. And then once the landing spots come out and we have free agency in the draft, then you can, invest more and stuff if you want to have a certainty on what the situation is. But I do think it's nice to get into a couple teams right now before things get crazy.
Yeah, I think at the very least, it just kind of sets the market for you. It kind of gives you an understanding of where these guys are going now and kind of what values they are going to become. Because this whole thing, like everything we talk about now, is going to be so fucking different in 3 months from now. Once we get free agency locked in, that's going to change the landscape for all the running backs and some for the wide receivers as well. And then once we get the draft, now that's going to change even more. For certain guys and where things end up. So like it's kind of like playing the stock market, right? Like as things go up and go down, like that's kind of where you're at, and that's kind of what you're trying to do. Buy
the rumor, sell the news.
Yes, and that's exactly where you're at, and really just trying to figure out where you're at on guys now. Like if you're looking at it, like again, like you brought up AJ Dillon. Like you're going to get AJ Dillon hell of a lot cheaper right now. If the second Aaron Jones is not coming back to the Packers, AJ Dillon is he is a locked in top 10 pick. Okay, he is fucking locked in as a top 10 pick. And so if you can get him now, like I don't even look where exactly is he even going?
Really
he's going late. I mean, I saw
RB29. Fucking that is a tremendous value. Now, if Aaron Jones comes back. Here's the thing. They're not bringing both back. They're not bringing back Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. Okay, it's not happening.
Right.
So they're only going to bring back one of them. So even at worst case, if you're paying RB29 price for that, like they're still going to split. So even if they do bring back Aaron Jones, let's say they franchise him for 1 year, he's still only going to get like 15 touches a game. So AJ Dillon is still going to get his and still going to get opportunities. So even at that price tag, you're not overpaying. And once he hits, like if AJ or Aaron Jones does not come back, it's wheels fucking up for AJ Dillon, and you just got a tremendous value much later. And taking a stand on the rookies and understanding who these guys are. We don't have to say it. I already know that I love Javonte Williams, and there's not a draft that I'm going to not have Javonte Williams, because you're going to get like honestly, like when you're in the draft, and let's say you're in this range of like running back 30 and stuff like that. That's typically what the 7th, probably 6th, 7th round. Most running backs you're going to take there, like that are going around him right now, are David Johnson, which we don't even fucking know if he's even going to be the starter in Houston. And if he is, I'm not all that excited about it because they're not going to have Deshaun Watson. So get me the fuck out of that. And then you have Zach Moss, Jay Connor, Damian Harris, Chase Edmonds, all going in that range. Mostert, Gaskin, Melvin Gordon. Give me the guy with the monster upside, because if Javonte Williams lands in Pittsburgh or Atlanta or Arizona,
even Miami,
or Miami, if he's the starter and he is going to be the lead back, then it's again the ceiling is so much higher for him there. We know that Kenyon Drake isn't going to be a fucking RB1 this year, right? Like it's probably not going to happen. He's a free agent too. He's probably going to go be a backup somewhere. Take the guy with the upside. Don't take these guys you think are safe. Hammer these dudes, understand who these rookies are, So,
yeah, our boy Derek's in the chat, and he's kind of saying all the things that I was getting ready to say. It's exactly what you guys were saying, just in different language. Try to pick guys that you think ADPs are going to rise over the next couple of weeks. So like you guys are saying, you're drafting these guys. Ryan, you mentioned drafting guys that possibly get Deshaun Watson exposure. Anybody that's going to be attached to Deshaun Watson is going to jump multiple rounds in ADP as soon as that news happens. So like you said, like what's a couple bucks on a team if you're like, okay, well, Denzel Mims could have Deshaun Watson throwing to him. Let me get some exposure to him. And if Watson does sign with the Jets, okay, I have a 12th round Mims and now everybody's drafting him in the 7th round, like stuff like that. So now you have the better Mims teams than everybody else has. And I think Derek mentioned drafting in waves too. I think that's very smart to do. Spread out, like don't draft all your teams right now in February. Spread it out over the course. Like try to segment it leading up to the start of the season, because there is going to be news cycles that come and go. Free agency, we haven't even had that yet. The draft, we haven't even had that yet. So there are going to be outlooks that change and that are going to affect player outlooks. And right now it is a bit of a guessing game, but if you can, get exposure to each news cycle, that time period, and you feel like, you can digest the information better than everybody else can, you just give yourself a better chance of winning, because you will have, as long as you spread yourself out over the time period, you will have exposed yourself to the optimal time period of news. So I think that's important. And I will say too, don't always just look at the big name guys that are going to get upgrades from like a change of quarterback scenery. So like an example, Matt Stafford going to the Rams, everybody's going to draft Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, those middle rounds, and you've got Van Jefferson who's going to sit there in late rounds, and Kupp and Woods had under a 7-yard average depth of target last year. And then Van Jefferson and Josh Reynolds were both over 11. So they're clearly the field stretchers in that offense. And now I have Matthew Stafford throwing them the ball as opposed to Jared Goff. Sign me up for that. So it's all about, man, taking advantage. And I think, Van Jefferson could gain some steam heading into this year. He had some steam last year in training camp or whatever they called training camp, I guess. There wasn't really one. But, yeah, just, get like you guys have said, try to get exposure to guys that you could see their ADP rising in the next couple of weeks or months or whatever it is for whatever reason. If there's any scenario where you're like, man, this guy, if I drafted him now and this scenario played out, he would be a winning pick at this ADP. Just pick him. Pick him.
Yeah. I mean, for a guy like me with Darnell Mooney, to get a guy who they obviously see a lot in, you're not talking about a guy that has a high draft profile necessarily, but the Bears don't ever have many high picks to begin with anyway. So you just take that with a grain of salt. But A-Rob is pretty much gone, right? So it's going to be him. It's going to be Cole Kmet. It's going to be Anthony Miller, maybe they get somebody, who knows? But I think for right now, you feel pretty confident in Mooney, at the very least being wide receiver 2, on that team. And we don't even know necessarily who the starting quarterback is going to be. So that could change as well too. And you're not really wasting a pick, I wouldn't say, on him. That's a guy who you can take a flyer on, who you say, okay, if he's sitting there as I get into double digit rounds, why the hell not? Because at that point you're looking at wide receiver 3s, 4s, 5s, once you get into that range, most likely some of the time. So to get a wide receiver 2 or like Denzel Mims, he's potentially a wide receiver 1. It's crazy, to think about some of these situations and how they're going. So that's fun. I think we got a couple more minutes here. I don't know if there's anything that you guys want to touch on. I will say real quickly, guys, that we will be coming back, every week, I think, leading up until the draft, or maybe not every week leading up to the draft, but mostly every week. And we will try and do shows that are catered to, specific positions. You guys feel free to comment in on the chat too. You're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, comment on the chat. Let us know what you want to see or want to hear us talking about, and we'll definitely be able to work that into the shows. We want to cater to what you guys want to hear and see as we're getting into this. So, reach out to us on Twitter at DJ Nation Pod, or reach out on the YouTube chat, and we'll definitely work those things in. You guys got anything else you wanted to touch on before we kind of wrap up this intro show?
I'm good. I'm excited for best ball. I've never really, myself, I have not done it this early. I've done it in like the May timeframe, right after the draft, once I know landing spots. But there definitely is an edge to doing it now, because like all of the things we just talked about, there's so many uncertainties that you can try to take advantage of. It definitely, right. even if it's like 5 or 10% of your total best ball exposure for the year, just get some teams in now, get the feel for what's going on, feel for ADPs, and just kind of, pay attention as things change, as news comes in.
Yeah, I see D-Bro in the chat talking about the favorite stacks or favorite values. I think we did touch on values earlier, but if there's a top stack that you guys want to talk about that you'd be looking to target, Kev, I know you got the ADP up there, so I'll let you kind of comb through. I said mine at the beginning. I mean, I definitely wanted to try and get some Joe Burrow and T. Higgins stacks. And D-Bro, I see you in the chat. I know you were talking very highly of T. Higgins. I think a lot of people, are hip to that train. So I think I definitely love that. And obviously I have my Wentz and Pittman stacks now, so I can, rest easy with getting those guys late. Maddie, how you feeling about a stack that you would want to try and get? And it doesn't have, maybe it's a tight end to quarterback stack. I do have a Kyler Murray, Dan Arnold stack for the DJ Nation fam out there.
Let's go.
So I thought that was fun.
I don't think he's on it. I think he's a free agent.
Is he?
Yeah,
I took him cheap. He'll end up somewhere. He was a late tight end for me.
He's a baller, man. Put
He's a baller.
Respect
for
on
sure.
his name. No, I'll stick with San Francisco as my pick. Everybody outside of Kittle, and you can even pick Kittle too if you want to pick Kittle early and then go with all the other guys late. But I don't think you need to go with Jimmy G with those guys, just because. I mean, we don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but in that offense under Shanahan, those guys are just too cheap. Like Ayuk should be going a little bit higher than he is. Deebo Samuel should not be going over 100 ADP. And Mostert even at 100 ADP is pretty crazy to me as well, because that guy has smashed when he has been healthy. And I think, that goes back to the whole Will Fuller thing last year, right? Everybody's like, I'm not drafting this guy. He's injury prone. And then Will Fuller goes out and plays a full season until he gets popped for PEDs. But so try to, take advantage of injury prone guys too, or who the community labels as injury prone, because they usually come with a discount. So yes, I'll go with San Francisco.
Love it. Kev, what you thinking?
I think if my favorite early stack is probably it's either the Cowboys or the Chargers, but I'm going to lean towards the Cowboys because you're still getting Dak Prescott cheaper than what you should. The trajectory he was on last year, he should be a guy that's coming off the board of the top 3. He's right now currently going off the board as 77th overall, 7th round, or not 7th, the 7th quarterback off the board. That is too cheap. I know people are a little hesitant because of the ankle injury that he suffered last year. There's no doubt he'll be 100% ready. And I think you could either, if you're wanting to stack it up, like it doesn't necessarily have to be CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper, but I think you could go like CeeDee Lamb or Amari Cooper and then go with Gallup because Gallup is going super late. And we kind of saw how, he kind of started to take off last year towards the end of the season. And then if you're wanting to go late, I still love Carson Wentz. As you already talked about, as we've already talked about, that stack is too fucking cheap right now with Paris Campbell, Michael Pittman. You're not spending anything on it. And, it doesn't cost you a whole lot. And that stack could be fucking money. And so I love that stack quite a bit as well if you're wanting to go late. I think some other interesting guys like Jameis Winston, if he ends up taking over as a starter in New Orleans, I know they're going to have to sign him. But it sounds like that's the guy they want. Or he could go somewhere else and maybe and find himself in a decent landing spot. Please, Lord, not the Bears. Don't do that to my boy Jameis. But, who knows? We'll see. But, yeah, I think those are probably my 2 favorite stacks for now. And then I think the other question, what was it? Favorite value? It's got to be at wide receiver, right? There's a ton of value down here at wide receiver. I was sitting here looking through this, and I'm like, Jesus, there's some really good value down here. Van Jefferson, you guys already mentioned. That's a really good one. Anthony Miller could be with the likelihood of Allen Robinson gone. You have Paris Campbell at wide receiver 83. Get all the way the fuck out of here with that. Like, that is significantly too. James Washington. So it sounds like Juju's gone. And so it sounds like Big Ben is back. And we know that they have a really strong rapport with James Washington. As long as they don't bring anybody else in, I doubt they do. So James Washington would definitely be a guy here in this stack that would make some sense. Tyler Johnson, if Chris Godwin were to leave via free agency, which Bruce Arians, you're a fucking moron out here saying, you shouldn't be chasing money. You should, something about the scheme and leaving a team. You shouldn't leave a scheme for money. And I'm like, bitch, what do you think these guys are trying to do? They're trying to make money. Like, pay this man. Like, you think he's going to take a hometown discount for you? No thanks. If I'm Chris Godwin, I'm getting my paper. All right, I got my ring. Now I need my paper. But anyways, if he leaves, Tyler Johnson at wide receiver 89 is terrific. And then, the rookies. The rookies are really, really undervalued right now in terms of the rookie wide receivers because people don't know who the fuck they are. Rondell Moore, wide receiver 68. That's fucking ridiculous. If he lands, that dude is so fucking dynamic. If he can land in the right spot, I think that he could be an absolute steal. Jalen Waddle, wide receiver 64. That is way too low. Rashad Bateman is another guy that would make some sense, who I think is the next Allen Robinson himself. And then Keelan Cole. My dream landing spot for him, where I think he realistically could go, the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that is a realistic landing spot for him. They need a wide receiver. The Chiefs don't have I want them to sign Allen Robinson so bad. They don't have the money to afford Allen Robinson. They don't have Allen Robinson type money. They have other holes they need. They're going to need offensive line. They have so many things they have to do. But Keelan Cole could come right in and slide right in and be the number 2 wide receiver. Because I'm going to be honest with you, don't draft McCole Hardman, because McCole Hardman is not going to be the Chiefs' number 2 wide receiver next year. No way, no how.
Hey, people don't want to hear that, Kev. People don't want to hear that. They don't
like McCole Hardman. They don't. Pat Mahomes doesn't seem like he much cares for him. Like he is always yelling at him because he always stops his routes. He'll be in the middle of a route, and as a Chiefs wide receiver, you fucking keep running. You don't stop because Pat Mahomes is moving around and he's always yelling at him, fucking pointing at him. Hey, motherfucker, keep fucking moving, and he doesn't do it. So that's why he's not getting the playing time. All offseason, you're going to people talk about McCole Hardman until the draft or until they sign somebody. Don't do it. It's a trap. Don't go there. Keelan Cole will be a lot of fun.
That's fun. Man, I love it. I love it. We of course, I said that we were gonna keep it short, and we're at an hour. That's short enough for the DGen. That's short enough for the DGen Nation pod. Man, yeah, this is gonna be a lot of fun. Like we said, we're getting into it. Best ball over here at the DGen Nation pod. This has been the Best Ball Strategy Show. Definitely having fun with you guys. Appreciate everybody who's been in the chat, keeping it lit up. I mean, we're here. We're gonna be talking about it. Let us know what you want to hear. Like I said, hit us up in the YouTube comments, hit us up on Twitter at DGen Nation Pod, or you can hit any one of us up as well on Twitter too, and we'd much appreciate that. We'll be back next week, and we'll figure out what the show's going to be. We'll tweet it out on the channel as we start to get into more best ball drafts and ADP fluctuate, see what's going on there as we get another week under the belt and kind of see where things are falling into the fold. This was fun, guys. I can't wait to do more of this and get it geared up with the DGen Nation channel, providing something to the Fantasy Authority in the off season, quote unquote. No off season here with football. No off season with the Fantasy Authority.
Yeah, we'll have to get Debro on a couple shows as well. So
definitely,
I can tell him how stupid he is, and why Zach Wilson's going to be a fucking stud.
Oh. Let him know, Kev. Let him know. Zach Wilson, I was looking at him in some draft. He didn't even go in one of the drafts I was in. And I think he went maybe in the 17th of 18th round in the second one that I was in. So he's definitely, like we said, put some respect on the name. He's definitely going disrespected right now, so to speak. But this was fun. I'm sure we'll have more to talk about next week as we get into it, guys. DGen Nation podcast here, signing off for the Godfather himself, Mr. Kevin Steele at Fantasy Rad 13, signing off for Maddie Dickinson at Maddie DFS, Maddie 2v2, and myself, the monologue man, Mr. Ryan Williams. You can find me on Twitter at Ryan Alexander _W. We're going to catch you guys next week for episode 103, more best ball. But until then, hit the YouTube channel, subscribe to the content, look for the Dynasty and Devi stuff on the show or on the YouTube channel and on the website. and DJ Nation will be back next week. Peace, y'all. We out.